I wanted to ask you about, you are an inclusion facilitator as well, right?
Yes.
So you were working with this young woman. What is inclusion facilitation for those who don't know?
Okay, it's a good question. I didn't know what it was before I started working. It's so important because it's about supporting the young person in accessing the things that they want to access, or things that they need to access. So, for example, this young person was it's creating a path, and it's looking at what their hopes and dreams and aspirations are, and trying to facilitate that. So this young person, for example, really wanted some support with her GCSEs. So that became part of, the work, supporting her and actually giving her a range of strategies on how she could provide, because she really struggled with her memory. So we looked at different strategies for revision, and she's a visual learner, so we did a lot of visual things, and it gave her some skills on how she could become more confident in that. And her other aims were to sort of get out and about into the community. So one of the sessions was, for example, to go into the library. So that's something that she hadn't done before, and she had quite a bit of anxiety about going in a car and traveling into a place that she didn't know. But it was brilliant, because she agreed to do it, and it was fantastic for her self-confidence to be able to go. And we went to the library, and then we did our revision in the library, and we had conversations about, well, when you're at university, this is something you could be doing, going to the library, doing your studying, and giving her those hopes and aspirations. And so an inclusion facilitator really works with the child, and it's completely unique depending on the child's needs. So one size doesn't fit all at all. One of the other things we were doing was trying to sort of build her confidence. So, for example, going to a cafe or a restaurant and her sort of placing an order, and just for myself and herself, and to somebody it might seem really simple, but actually if you're a young person that really has a lot of anxiety and you struggle with communicating with people that you don't know, that's really challenging and really difficult. And it's about thinking about, well, what are the steps to facilitate that? Because if I'd got her to do that from the very start, I don't think we would have managed it. I really had to develop a relationship with her, and she had to feel safe. And then it was sort of building up steps. So, for example, one time she just ordered the drinks, or even actually making a selection on the menu. That's a skill in itself as well. When you have so much variety, what are you going to choose? So there were so many skills involved in that, and they were the sort of key areas that she wanted to focus on. So that's what I facilitated, and I got a lot from it. It was really valuable work. She was a lovely girl, really bright, lots of potential, but did have a lot of anxiety, and it was about trying to support her, and also giving her some strategies of what she could do when she had the anxiety. An example comes to mind. I wrote it in the there's a blog on the Inclusion website, and we sort of personified this fear and this anxiety, this feeling that she would get. And we said, well, imagine if it was a person, what would we say to him or her? And it was almost sort of saying, well, having a conversation, well, actually, you're making me feel like this. And for her to be able to do that, it was just really powerful. It reminded me of a poem that I shared with her by Mavlana Rumi, and it's called The Guest House. And the poem talks about thoughts and coming into the mind like guests. And so it says you need to welcome them, and they'll come and stay for a few days or longer, and then they'll leave. And I just think it was such a good example of that. So those thoughts that would then create anxiety of, oh, I don't feel safe. Or, what could you do in that moment when you don't feel safe?
You just leave the thoughts are like guests, and they come and stay for a few days, and then they leave.
They leave.
Nice.
Yeah, I just think that was a really powerful way of explaining it. And, it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy to control your thoughts, but it's a way of living with the thoughts rather than feeling detached from them. And I think that's what she was feeling. She was feeling detached from herself at that point, and it was trying to get her to realize that actually, you know, she did have some control in those moments when she was feeling that anxiety. She had the ability where she could, you know, for example, take a nice deep breath. She could try and, you know, we developed positive mantras that she could say as an alternative, you know, and things like that, and putting those in place. So it was giving her life skills. So just such vital work. You know, we need more inclusion facilitators. We need to expand the work, and we need our young people to have these opportunities. Just vital.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, do you have any advice for anyone who's a new inclusion facilitator?
Yes, I'm thinking back to when I first started. It's quite nerve-wracking because, you know, it's open, and sometimes that's nerve-wracking. My advice is really listen to what the child wants and what the child needs, because, you know, it is child-led, and we are facilitating and supporting and moulding that, and working with the young person and making sure that, you know, that they're comfortable. And I would say there's an end goal, but really breaking that goal down into small achievable steps, because we want our young people to feel like they've achieved something. You know, and because once they get to that sense of achievement, they will then feel as though they could then take the next step. So I would say it's really important to listen carefully to what the child says and the people around the young person who know them, but also to keep the goals, you know, really manageable and achievable, so that they get a sense of achievement and feel motivated to kind of move on and then do the next thing. And also they can look back and say, well, actually, oh, it was brilliant, I achieved that first step, or I achieved the second step, and it gives them a real sense of you know, accomplishment, as we would feel as adults, really.
Yeah, a lot of people I've spoken to who are inclusion facilitators have said by the end of it, the young person feels a lot more confident, a lot more proud of themselves, and they kind of hold their head a bit higher. You know, that's really, if that's something that's achievable through this input, then it's really valuable.